Hi, it's Brent Abel here, webtennis.net. And you know, one of the tricky things about working with our stroke technique is we have to do it too often with the ball being fed to us. Either the ball's being fed to us, we've got, you know, someone over there rallying with us, or we've got someone feeding a ball out of a basket, or someone's even underhanding feed the ball to us. And the biggest problem is the timing of when that ball is going to come in. And so when we're working on our stroke mechanics, we're working on technique, whatever it is, really we can kind of get lost in what we're working on because we're so concerned with when this ball is going to arrive, what the timing of the ball is. So one of the things Tom still worked with all of us on was a stationary ball. So we would work on technique. Rather than this with an incoming ball, we would work technique with a stationary ball, and I want to show you right now the PracticeHit, which is really a great product to be able to help you practice your specific stroke mechanics. All right, so this is the PracticeHit, and what it is, it's a stationary ball stroke development aid. And you know what I like to use it for are a number of different stroke mechanics that are sort of, you know, common denominators, especially on the forehand and backhand ground strokes from the baseline, but also on approach shots. And so what I'm going to work on is finding out, you know, what's the ideal distance that I want the tennis ball to be away from me at the point of contact. And once you know that, then the whole notion of what is footwork, you know, footwork is really about creating space so that the swing always gets to receive the ball at the ideal point of contact. So that's one thing that you can work on. The other thing you can work on is at contact, are you not looking up? Are you actually keeping your eyes down at contact? And you really want to develop this skill. We see Federer, we see you know, Nadal do this at contact. What are these guys doing? Well, they've really got, you know, the head down here at contact, and they're not pulling up too early. With this PracticeHit, you can practice this whether you're on the tennis court, whether you're in your living room at home, whether you're out backyard, you know, the side deck, inside the garage, wherever it is. You know, you don't have to carve out time on a tennis court to be able to use the PracticeHit. So, you know, these are the two basic things that I want you to think about. Is that number one, where's the ideal contact point? Once you find it, then you can start coming over using some footwork and going ahead. You can sidestep away from it. You can come back in, wait for it to come into the strike zone, and you know, you can put this right in the middle of the court, where you know we get lots of balls that are played right back to us. And one of the big challenges we have is stepping out of the way and then being able to step back into that shot the way that you want to. Too often what I see on shots is we get in here and we get all tied up. So the PracticeHit will help you develop that skill of you step out of the way and then you come back into the hit. The thing you can use the PracticeHit stroke developer to practice is what I call defining the point of contact. So what I like to do here is in the forehand, for example, is when I turn, I like to sort of define where that point of contact is going to be on my forehand with my hands. So I'm going to turn and separate my hands a bit. I'm not going to hold on to it too long in here. I want to turn, keep my hands on, but eventually I want to get my hands apart to where I'm now defining my point of contact and then moving according to wherever the ball is going to be so that I'm ready to go ahead and swing. And as I'm moving, I now know that, you know, I know here's about the distance that the point of contact is going to be in. It's not going to be huge. It's not going to be way back here. It's not going to be way out in front. I know I've now defined this area with my hands, and I can move my hands accordingly with my feet to do what? To really create that ideal spacing that we talked about in tip number one. Okay, another great way to use the PracticeHit stroke developer is working on your swing shape. And what do we mean by swing shape? Well, you know, I've sort of thrown this question out there before to you. Are you a shaper, meaning do you shape out your swing, or are you a puller? Do you go racket back, wait, and then pull the racket back in? Well, I want you to learn to be a shaper because you get much better spin, you get much better racket speed, and in the end, you don't have to clench and be tight on that racket, on the handle of the racket, by having to pull back in to make contact. So let's work on the pre-contact swing shape. Pre-contact is everything that happens before you make contact. Well, what I like in the forehand is to feel that there's a little bit of a loop in here. It's not a big high loop. It's a little bit of a loop to kind of allow the racket to pick up some natural swing speed. You can use the PracticeHit stroke developer to work on this. You can turn, you can define that point of contact area, and then work on this right in here and feeling what that pre-contact swing shape is like. Okay, another great way to use the PracticeHit stroke developer is with your ground stroke grips. If you're using a full Eastern forehand grip, you're probably not holding that grip in your ready position, meaning your neutral position, when you don't know whether your opponent's going to give you a forehand or a backhand. What I hold is a continental grip, only because most of the shots in the game are played with a continental grip. So that's my neutral grip back here in the baseline. If I get a ball where I want to go Eastern forehand, I want to practice that feeling of coming out of the continental over to an Eastern forehand. I can really feel that with the stationary ball, as opposed to someone feeding me a ball where I'm really concerned about the timing of the ball. And being able to really tangibly feel that grip change is much easier with this right here. So go ahead, get in your ready position, feel that continental or whatever is your neutral grip. And if it's Eastern forehand that you're going to drive on this forehand for a nice topspin drive, go ahead, feel the change, and then go all the way out through your forehand ground stroke swing. Another way you can practice with a PracticeHit stroke developer is what we call swing freedom. And swing freedom is making sure that as you pass through the ball that you don't feel yourself kind of tightening up and sort of muscling the ball. Lots of us are pretty good in this ready position. The hands are pretty relaxed. We do a nice job of turning. There's not much clenching going on. And then all of a sudden we get to contact and everything just kind of locks up. And so what we want to try to develop is swing freedom, where you're not concerned about the result of going through the ball. And one of the ways that you can use the PracticeHit stroke developer is the sense that as you look at the ball right here, is that you can feel your hands staying relaxed right before contact and right as you go right out through the ball. It's called swing freedom, and you can really feel the difference as opposed to if you kind of clench on that racket handle and start to tighten up. Another thing to practice with the PracticeHit stroke developer, especially for tennis players who have any kind of elbow injuries, shoulder injuries, wrist injuries, anything with your shoulder kind of on down, you really want to make sure that you're not clenching at contact. And so what I want you to try to feel is what we call a lighter grip tension going out through the ball. And you can do that with the PracticeHit, that as you go through it, keep your head down and feel how there is no gripping, there's no squeezing on that handle right prior to contact or right as you go through the ball. And if you can do this, I think what you'll find, especially for players who've got injuries, the wrist to the elbow to the shoulder, is that this will really go a long way, not only if you're rehabbing right now one of those injuries, but once you get that injury fixed and you go back out in the court, you want to make sure that you go back out in the court and start playing with a much more relaxed grip tension, right as you go through the ball, that you don't clench on that racket handle. Finally, another great way to use the PracticeHit stroke developer on both your ground strokes, forehand and backhand, and also your pro shots on forehand and backhand, is what is your finish position that you want. I think too often what happens is players, when they're really playing, is right at the point of contact, everything starts to stop, starts to slow down, and they start almost prematurely getting ready for the next potential shot, whatever that's going to be. You really need to have a specific and defined finish position on whatever is your standard forehand ground stroke topspin drive. I know where mine is. When I come, I get my spacing, and I got the pre-swing shape that I want, and I've got the nice relaxed grip. There is a specific finish position that I want to get to. Too often what we do is when we have a ball being fed to us is that right about a contact is we'll start to look to see our result. And what happens there is you really shorten up, you really abbreviate the finish position, and you don't want to do that. You really want to make sure that you maintain swing speed out through the ball all the way to wherever your finished position is. Okay, another tip for you with the PracticeHit Stroke Developer is you can work on that high forehand, that high backhand that's tough when you're back in the baseline. Simply just go ahead and put this up on a bench or a chair. You can do this at home. You can put it on a little stool at home. You can put it on a little chair. I'm out here in the tennis court. I can put it on the bench. And I can work on, you know, we talked before about, well, what's the right spacing you want when the ball's down here about waist high? Well, now when it's up here about shoulder high, I like to play the ball a little bit later. When it's down here about waist high, I'm a little further out in front. Well, I don't want to be way out in front on this high ball, so I'm going to play the ball more here to my side and kind of let the shoulder get involved a little bit more rather than if the ball's down here about waist high. So there's lots of different ways to use the stroke developer, the PracticeHit Stroke Developer, and this is a great way if you want to practice that higher ball where it's about shoulder high, you know, if not a little bit higher, and really work on the spacing, work on the contact point in relation to where it is with your body, and go ahead and get a nice kind of level swing on this so you feel like you're swinging out through the ball with the ball being played just a little bit later behind you. So another great way to use the PracticeHit Stroke Developer is on your approach shots. One way you can do this is you can have someone feed you a ball from the baseline where you go ahead and you play one ground stroke, and then you can come in and really get the feeling of that approach shot, whatever you're working on with it. You know, whether it's spacing, knowing exactly what's the distance you want away from your body at contact, where do you want your head position at contact, where do you want the finish to be, and really most importantly for the approach shot, you know, how do the feet work as you come into this shot, so you really get a sense of being able to move through the shot as you hit and be able to get up to net so you can challenge your opponent to go ahead and hit a passing shot. And if you can practice all of these different stroke mechanics, all these different elements of the swing with the PracticeHit Stroke Developer, you're really going to go a long way to get yourself a nice solid forehand ground stroke, a good solid backhand ground stroke, and also on your approach shots. All right, any questions? Brent at webtennis.net. Have a great day out there.
Hi, it's Brent Abel here at webtennis.net, and hey, hope you enjoyed that little demonstration there of the PracticeHit Stroke Developer. You know, if you're really serious about working on the different stroke mechanics, the different elements of your forehand and backhand ground strokes, even your approach shots, you really need to have a stationary ball to help you accomplish that. So go ahead and order yours and claim your free lesson bonus.